when I'm making a work, I'm seeing it as a visual metaphor for relationships or experiences I've had, or like how a situation, it's kind of like trying to visualize a situation.
Right.
That's not like you can't paint that.
Right.
You know? So it's sort of painting a feeling. And I think that translates for people because you don't necessarily need to know what it was about for me.
Definitely.
Making that given work, but you could have a reaction to it that you're not even sure about. Like it could be, I used a green that your mom's car was or something, you know, like just color's so universal.
Welcome back to another episode of Inside Hilton's Head, where Molly and I are together and we're on a field trip to a wonderful space in Baltimore, Maryland. We're in the studio, the beautiful studio. If you're watching this, you can see that we're already in the studio. You already see our guest. If you're listening to this, you already know who our guest is. And let me just say her name. It is the beautiful artist, Emma Childs, is with us today. Emma, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Or thank you for having us.
Yeah, I guess that's,
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, there we go. That makes more sense.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast. I want to say some lovely things about Emma that some of you might not know. She is are you an up and coming artist? Do you feel like that's a thing?
I think I'd rather be up and coming than like done. But
True. And I
like
like the idea of the up and coming because you're on the journey.
Right.
Right.
I think you're always up and coming as an artist.
Yeah.
As you should be.
Yeah.
So she's an up and coming contemporary artist whose work medium is mainly in painting and focuses on a colorful, minimalistic abstractions, is what I think, that are framed on different shaped stretchers for the most part.
For the most part.
She is from Baltimore, Maryland. She attended Maryland Institute College of Art, which is also a place that I love and share that same, I guess, degree with you. But you have a degree in painting?
We have the same degree.
General Fine Arts. Generally fucking around, as they say. GFA.
No way.
Yeah, but I love that. I love that we share that together. And if you aren't aware, Emma has been in many group shows and her own solo shows as well. From New York to Charlotte, obviously in Maryland. Have you ever had a show out west?
I don't think so. I've had a show in London. I've been part of a
show in London. Look at you.
You were
like
in
the
DC.
other side. I don't think I've had a show out west, actually. No,
Not yet.
You were
Not
in
yet.
DC
Check my
too.
CV.
I remember.
Close. You're going to get there. But I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. Emma, you are not just one of my favorite artists who are putting out work today, but you're also one of my favorite people.
Thanks, Hilton.
I want to share before we get deep into this how I know you, because most of the people that we have on the podcast I have a relationship with.
Yep.
And that's how they become a part of inside my head of like, I wonder how they do this thing or what their life's about or some of their background is. And for you, how we met, how our relationship started is very interesting to me. It's something that whenever I think about it, I just love how not just small Baltimore is, we call Baltimore Small-Timore, but just how life brings people together. Now, audience, some of you who followed me for a really long time know that I have a propagation vessel called the Cradle. And I have been selling this vessel for the last 5 or 6 years. And I remember back, I believe it was 2019, because it was definitely before the pandemic.
18.
It could have been 18.
I feel like it was when I was still or just graduated. I graduated in 2018.
You graduated in 2018.
It was somewhere in there.
It was somewhere in there where I got a call from a friend of mine, Carlos Raba, who also owns the wonderful restaurant Bar Clavel, which we've had Lane Harlan, who co-owns that with him. He gave me a call and he said, hey, and he sent over some photos. He was like, hey, one of the guests here from last night left this gift. It's your product. It's a cradle. And clearly it was for their mother because it says Happy Mother's Day and they left it here. Can you reach out to this person to see if she can come get it? And I'm thinking, I don't know this person. I don't know this person, but I'm glad that they bought a cradle. I mean, it says the person's name on it.
It had my name on it.
I
guess it was shipped to me.
And you have the reservations of like all of the people who've joined that night. I was like, I'll try to find out. And then I looked you up on social and I found her. I found Emma and I said, hey, thank you so much for purchasing a cradle.
Did you leave it at
Clavel? It seems like you
night?
bought this for your mom. Did you leave it at Clavel? And Emma was so sweet. She was like, oh yeah, thank you so much. And then I'm like, well, while I'm here on your page, I noticed that you went to MICA, Maryland Institute College of Art, which you and I both attended. Your art is beautiful. So glad that we're in contact. And like,
I guess we're friends now.
That is the craziest meet cute ever.
Right? Like I met my wife in a really amazing way, but that's like, secondly, like I've never met someone in that way where it's just like, oh shit, like not only did you, without knowing me, support me in my business, but you were there to support your mom. You came to a place that I love to support, which is our friend's restaurant. All these things came together. And then this relationship that you and I have started, as far as just like me loving your work and trying in as many opportunities as I could bring your work into spaces that I was creating and hopefully into my own home as well. I just thought that I just loved how that story came together, and then now we're here today.
I know, it's so fun.
So thank you.
That's crazy. I forgot about the cradle thing.
Yeah, I will never forget. It's just so weird to me that that's how it, like how something like that can create a relationship outside of just like, oh, we're two artists, we went to school together, but we've worked together in some sort of capacity where I now know your family in a way that I'm going to talk about today that I find to be probably the reason why you are who you are. And we'll touch on that in a bit. Molly, you've been excited about this episode.
I have.
You've been excited. Now,
I'm excited about most episodes, but this one particularly, I was thrilled.
You were thrilled.
Yeah.
So thrilled. Now, the viewers and listeners, you might be able to hear some things that are happening in the background. And maybe you'll actually see soon what is happening here in Emma's studio. But Molly, can you explain? You love Emma's art.
Yeah, so I wasn't familiar with your art to begin with, but when I heard that we're going to have you on the podcast, I obviously stalked you on Instagram, as one does for anyone they're about to meet.
As you should.
And then I noticed a specific pet that you had featured on your Instagram page.
Yes.
And what kind of pet was this?
It was a pet pig named Plum.
Yep.
And
She's chewing on your wires right now. Plum.
She knows it's about her right now.
Plum the pig is chewing on our wires. Now,
I wanted to make sure that, obviously I was really excited to meet you, but meeting Plum was really, this is a true honor for me. I am such a pig lover. I also used to have a pet pig.
No way.
Yeah.
Now, before you dig into why you had a pet pig, I want to understand, Emma, why do you have a pet pig?
She bit my foot.
She likes shoes.
She likes to chew and test things out. That's what I hear.
She does.
Now, our viewers can see that Plum has made her way. She was like, are you talking about me?
She straight up stretched out, was like, all right, my turn.
Are you talking about me? Plum has now made her way onto the stage. Emma, why a pet pig?
I just always wanted one, and I feel like that's a boring answer, but I get that question a lot, obviously, and I just wanted one when I was little, and then I kept wanting one, and then I was an adult, and I still wanted one, so I got one.
I love that.
Hold on, because I know Molly's like, let me talk about my pet pig, but Molly, you had a pet pig when you were a kid.
I did.
I'm trying to figure this out. Your parents, they love you.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they get you a pet pig?
Well, I had dogs, and I had a pony, and I had chickens.
Fair. Touche.
So a pig would have been, can't even imagine.
You would have had a little farm if you would have had a pig. Once you had a pig, now you just have a farm.
It wasn't the right timing.
But you actually did have a farm. You like having a city pig.
Yeah.
So now you have a city pig. Now that's above and beyond. Now, before Molly talks about her pig, do I want to move on to her pony? You had a pony?
Let's discuss the pony first.
Well, I grew up riding horses, and I had a pony growing up.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Where'd you grow up?
In Moncton, northern Baltimore County, so
Got
like
it.
45 minutes north of here.
Ryan, our creative, our content producer, also the podcast producer, he's shouting out Moncton because that's kind of where he lays his head now.
Really?
He's not
Oh,
from
no way.
Moncton,
No
but
way.
that's where he lays his head now.
My
I'm glad
parents
you.
still live out there too.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Moncton because to understand that she grew up around all these farm animals and that love for a pig or wanting a pig that might have come from that, right?
Just animals, all animals.
Animals in general.
Animals.
Now, would you consider yourself a horse girl?
That's an identity.
That is an identity.
I mean, ask anyone that knew me in like elementary school age, like maybe.
Can we talk about the identity of a horse girl?
There's so many different avenues of horse girl. There's like Kendall Jenner horse girl.
Fair.
And like
I didn't know anything about
Yeah,
that.
like Gigi Hadid, horse girl.
you
That's
know
like
what I
a
mean?
type. Yeah.
No, I don't know. Can
the
someone
thing.
explain
Narrative.
what we're talking about? I just know
like
what.
there's a chic horse girl.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then
shit,
there's like
levels to this.
Then there's like the kind of like playing ponies at recess horse girl. And I think
Right.
I've been all in both. You know, like
I love that.
stages.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
There are different types of horse girls.
Well, this is knowledge to me, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the listeners are like, "What? There's more than the type that we all have in our brains." But I love that there's a chic version,
Yeah.
and there is the version that we all know. And you've been all of these types.
I love that.
Okay.
Grow and we change different types of horse girl.
Now you're a pig girl.
Yes.
What is
The
is
best
that?
girls are
what
pig
is-
girls.
What is the best girls are pig girls? So pig girls, what are they like? What do they?
I don't know any other pig girls. So, I mean,
It's
this is
far
something
and
we
few.
could figure out.
Yeah, we can figure it out right
Well,
now.
Molly, give your pig story. What was? Can I call it a pig story?
Yeah, I guess the story. I also got a pig because I've always wanted a pig. I asked my parents incessantly for a pig. It was right when like Vietnamese potbelly pigs, so like indoor, I guess, pet pigs became a thing where they don't get too large. And so I finally got this pig. I mean, I was far less creative with the naming. I just named it Piggy. But
That's cute. I like
Piggy was just so great, so smart, so cuddly, so independent too. Just a brilliant, sentient, emotionally intelligent animal.
Yeah,
And I loved her so much. I got her when I was younger, like in 3rd grade. So I would like paint her hooves, I guess, like red with nail polish.
Man, you were deep into it.
I was deep into it, but pigs have always been my favorite animals, will continue to be. They're just, I love their personality and their character, and they're all so different. So meeting Plum today, I mean, truly like highlight of my podcast career.
I love it. I mean, it definitely is something that separates you from many,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like I've
You don't
never
see a lot.
I've never actually sat in a space with a pig like this. An urban pig, just
Urban
like
pig. Yeah.
hanging out.
Cosmopolitan pig.
Yeah.
And that to me is just another part of why I love you and think you're so rad.
Thank you.
You grew up wanting a pig.
Yeah.
Did you grow up wanting to be an artist?
I did not so much. I mean, that question's interesting because art was always what I was interested in and what I was constantly like consistently doing growing up. But I never really thought of myself as an artist or something that is something I can just make my life about.
Were your parents creatives?
Yeah, they're both creatives in their own right, I would say. My dad, especially, he's an architect and he designs furniture and yeah, he's really talented in that way. And my mom is also very creative, but neither of them are like doing what I'm doing right now per se. And no one else in my family has really done what I'm doing now. But I would say that creativity runs in the family for sure. So I went to MICA and I graduated and then it just kind of like naturally just happened. Like I just got a studio and started selling things and putting things in shows and it just sort of snowballed from there and kind of got lucky and got to make a career out of it.
Well, you're jumping ahead. You're putting us into the right now.
Yeah,
the
sorry.
present. I want to. I mean, you already went through the fact that you went to MICA and you graduated. You got a studio. I want to know about I want to know the version of you that had because I know for myself, at a younger age, there was like, I want to be an artist.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to Carver. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Carver.
Yeah.
Right. So there was like I know that this is what I want to be. I'm going to put myself in a position to be surrounded by other artists. Right. But then there also knew kids who grew up here who ended up at MICA. And they come from all different types of other high schools or backgrounds. So when you were growing up, like what was your art that you were creating? Was it paintings? Was it drawing?
Yeah.
It was painting.
It's always kind of gone back to painting. I've consistently painted my whole life.
Yeah.
It was always my favorite subject in school, or like in high school, I was always doing projects on the side. Like
What high school did you go to?
Garrison Forest.
Garrison Forest. Okay.
Yep. It's an all-girls school in Owings Mills.
Okay. And you did a lot of art there.
Yeah.
As well.
I got my art teacher at Garrison sort of took a special interest in me and like kind of noticed that I was sort of pouring myself into this more than other things in school. And she sort of pushed me to do like extracurricular things with it and gave me special projects to do like outside of the projects that we were doing in regular class. And she was a MICA alum as well, actually. And she's the one that sort of pushed me to apply and think about art school as an option and sort of opened my eyes to that possibility.
Were you thinking elsewhere? I mean, you had this influence of a dad who was an architect. Would you ever think that you would touch in that sort of career? Or
I think I always knew I would do something creative. I just wasn't sure exactly what, or if it would be just making things that I love to make, or if it would be in a different avenue. I sort of wanted to go a more traditional, like liberal arts school route at first, and I tried that for a year. And
where'd you go?
I went to Charleston for College of Charleston for a year.
Yeah.
And it felt, I think it was more just, so I got into MICA and I got into Charleston, and like MICA was kind of the obvious choice.
For sure.
But I'm like in high school and I'm like, I don't know if I want to be that intensely into it yet.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then I went to Charleston and I'm like, I just felt like I wasn't doing much other than being very social. And I wasn't really finding like fun in like learning and
You were just partying. You can say it. You can say it.
My time would be better spent.
You can just say it. You were partying. You were having a good time.
I was going to the beach. I was trying food.
I get it.
But yeah, and I've always loved working hard and having something that I'm excited to do. So I think having that experience and doing that for a year definitely solidified that I was like ready to really buckle down. And
maybe that is what you needed to like try something so different to be like, okay, that's not for me.
Okay, that was the good choice.
Yeah.
And they were cool. I like reached out to the admissions office and they were like, you didn't even have to reapply, which was cool.
That's awesome.
Great.
That is awesome. That's the beauty of MICA. Like so many people there, the people who work there and want to have talented individuals come in and out of that building.
Yeah.
They will save space for someone like yourself.
Well, thank you.
Which is awesome. And I keep going back to who she is. And I think it's maybe, I don't know all of our guest parents. I've met her parents. Multiple times. Whenever Emma would help me put a piece into a space that I was designing, her dad would come along.
Yeah.
And
he did a couple on his own when I was out of town and you needed something for a photo shoot.
Very true.
That's amazing.
He would drop the artwork off. He was always just there to help. And
he's the best.
Whenever I would see them, whether it was just your dad alone or your mom and dad or your mom alone, beaming with joy about you. When you were a child, and I'm just guessing this, they would seem very supportive now. Were they supportive then on anything that you were like, I want to do this, I want to do that?
Absolutely, yeah. Pretty much anything I wanted to do, I feel like they at least did their best to let me try something. You know, and I think the consistent thing was they always let me make decisions for myself, like even picking a high school in 8th grade, like they let that be my choice. And like the thing my mom would always say is like, your gut knows the best thing and you know what's right for you, and you can trust yourself to make these decisions for yourself, and we'll help you along the way. Kind of thing.
That's huge. I mean, I think as an artist, for you to have like supportive parents from the get-go, because I feel like not all artist stories go that way.
Yeah. No, it's so lucky. It made me feel so much more brave, especially getting older, like sort of always having them saying like, you know the right thing. Like you just make these choices.
And you can just kind of trust yourself too in that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People who don't know of podcasts, we were just talking earlier when before this started that I'm actually going to go and visit Emma's family and Emma. This is something that I guess we're going to mention for the first time. I'm working on a new book, and Emma and her mom are going to be in it. They're Staghorn Fern named
Bob.
Shout out Bob.
Shout out Bob will be featured in the book. So I'm going to go to the home, photograph them and Bob, but also jump in their pool.
It's going to be a perfect day.
It's going to be a perfect day. And I'm going to
perfect
meet
day.
your sister Camille as well.
Yes.
That's so awesome.
I cannot wait for that. So as far as just like having someone who's supportive, my mom was that support system for me. My dad, supportive, the artists in my family, but always someone who thought in the sense of how do you make money? Right?
Which
is a fair question.
A very fair question.
Totally legitimate.
Your dad is an architect. Architects, you never hear of a starving architect. Not, you know what I mean? Like
It's true.
Yeah, it's not the same.
it's not the same. How did they feel about you leaning towards? Now I know they're very just like, hey, do you? Very empowering. Like, hey, do you? Did they ever question that for you as far as like being a starving artist, or just the lifestyle that an artist is?
So their approach was very just to be helpful, and so it helps. They both work for themselves too. So my dad has his own architecture business, and my mom's a therapist in a private practice. So they both understand what goes into running your own business. So they can, that was an area that they had expertise in that they could really help me with. Like
Awesome.
just teaching me how to do all these things.
Yeah,
that
where
you
to
don't
start.
Yeah, exactly. So I think also with them being sort of entrepreneurial themselves in that way, it didn't intimidate them as much for me to go down that path.
Totally.
They understand it, and they also understand the anxiety of it. Like they can relate. Like I have conversations with them and they're like, I remember being like your age and feeling these same things, and it's okay. And so they've sort of lived a lot of the same challenges that I face running my own business too, even though they're very different businesses.
Still, yeah. I mean, that entrepreneurial like spirit to even start a
For
business,
sure.
like it's really like step one is like, okay, like what do I do now? Like, I want to sell my art. How do I do that? And to have that support system so close, that's so awesome.
And
I love
working
that
for yourself is just a
Whole different thing.
It's
Yeah.
a beast.
I wanted to get into that a little bit too.
You want to get into working for yourself? I mean,
Well,
you
no,
work
not
from-
personally right
Oh,
now.
I'm
I
like,
mean,
holy shit, you
talking
telling me right
I'm
now
like,
you want
so-
to quit?
quitting.
On that note, Hilton, goodbye.
That would have been so badass. I would have been like, hell yeah. You're
And
gonna
I'm taking the pig.
Damn. You want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah,
Go
like-
ahead. Go for it.
When, one of our like token questions in the podcast is like, how are you sleeping lately? Which I know we briefly discussed before we started, but also like as someone who works for yourself, how do you sort of like maintain a semblance of like schedule and normalcy and what like a day-to-day should look like? Because it must look so different for you.
Right. That's something that gave me a lot of anxiety, to be honest,
I
like
get that.
starting out, just because everyone I was surrounded with at the time, or the majority of people were working like regular jobs, like 9 to 5 schedule. And I
Right.
just never felt like I was doing enough, or I like was always doing too much. And there wasn't like, it just didn't feel, I was comparing myself too much to that sort of schedule.
course.
And now my approach is sort of day by day. What do I need to get done by what time? And when do I have time for certain things? Like to just paint. Like I need certain time, like a certain amount of days a week to just come in here and not have to worry about more administrative things.
For sure.
And so, and it depends on what projects I'm working on. So I guess my approach is just accepting that it's different all the time.
Yeah.
Is what I've figured out.
And not thinking like too far ahead, because that can
Yeah.
feel like really looming and scary. So that makes a lot
and
of
I get
sense.
so much more done that way.
Yeah.
If I'm just letting it be a day by day thing and not an hourly thing. Because
For
some days
sure.
are longer than others.
Yeah.
Hilton, you should learn from that.
Learn from taking it day by day.
Yeah, because Hilton like every couple of weeks asks me what our 10-year plan is.
Yeah, I need a 10-year
Like,
plan.
no joke.
But I will say, and I-
No, and you can have a 10-year plan and
Yeah.
also like take it day by, because it's what your business needs.
For sure.
You know,
For
like
sure.
I don't need to
Direction.
be in here 9 to 5
exactly,
every single
because you
day.
have to.
Right.
You have to. from what I learned from Craig Melvin, you have to, no, it's not even Craig Melvin. This is from Max Ryan. You have to steer the ship towards a destination.
For sure.
Now you can make certain stops along the way, of course, but in order to get to the place that you want to be, you have to set that destination. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's just like where do I want to take this thing? And I always think about where that might be and things that could take me off that path. Let's not bring those in.
Right. Or waste our time investing in that.
So I feel like where Emma is, or where her mindset is perfect. And we'll be right back after a break from our sponsor. Balancing work and life can be really stressful, and finding ways to work through the stress is always a goal of mine. Of course, the process of nurturing plants helps me to slow down, take a breath, and bring in joy. But unfortunately, my plants aren't licensed therapists with expert advice. Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or you're just a human who lives in this world who is going through a hard time, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in my description. It's betterhelp.com/Hilton. Clicking this link helps to support this channel, but it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp so you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. And because finding a therapist is a little like dating, if you don't really fit with that therapist, which is a common thing with therapy, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. Starting this podcast was supposed to be a little extra therapy for me, getting the ideas in my head out. Good to know I can always use BetterHelp just in case Molly can't help me. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/Hilton. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel. Now, back to the show. So your artwork is behind us. If you're watching that podcast, we are sitting in Emma's studio where she actually creates the art. But so you can see the artwork that is on the wall. When I first found you on social to give you your cradle,
so weird.
I noticed the art, right? I noticed the art, and it's abstractions, abstract. First of all, why abstractions? Why was that something that you wanted, or why is that where you exist now? I'm not sure where your career has come from and how because you were in general fine art, like you said. Why abstractions now?
Abstractions now. Well, I feel like I got super into painting, got to the point where I was able to kind of paint whatever in an okay way.
Yeah.
But nothing that felt like my body of work. And I was always drawn to abstract painting because of how many avenues you can take with it. You can quite literally do anything with abstract painting.
Who were some of the people you were looking at?
I mean, obviously Ellsworth Kelly is inspiring to me because I love how you can take paint and make it look like nothing but the color it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, I love the materiality of paint. So I feel like I try to sort of find a middle ground in those things in my work. And I love the simplicity. Like I love a large canvas that's just a few colors that you can stand next to and just be present with the colors in it.
Yeah.
And not necessarily need it to be an image,
right?
But it can just be an object on the
sure.
wall.
I love that because it's not like trying to figure out like what it is, but more just like feeling its presence.
Yeah, and then if you want to go deeper in that, like when I'm making a work, I'm seeing it as a visual metaphor for relationships or experiences I've had, or like how a situation. It's kind of like trying to visualize a situation,
right?
That's not like you can't paint that,
right?
You know? Yeah. So it's sort of painting a feeling. And I think that translates for people because you don't necessarily need to know what it was about for me
Definitely.
making that given work, but you could have a reaction to it that you're not even sure about. Like it could be, I used a green that your mom's car was or something, you know, like just color's so universal.
Yeah.
And
I definitely want to touch on that because obviously there's times whenever I'm trying to bring a piece of yours into a space, I'm always like, well, it's for the color to fit into this space. Now, do you ever, and before I get into this question, because I'm about to ask a question about that, for me, and in art in general, obviously the creator makes the art, whatever their interpretation of where their mind was or what they're trying to infuse into the art is for them alone, but it's not in some sort of ways because then if it's on a gallery wall, there's a little description of what it's about, right?
Sometimes.
Or a title. Sometimes it's untitled, right? For me, I look at the work. Listeners, I'm turning towards the wall and looking at our work. What I loved about it was I loved how bold the colors were. That was the first thing I loved about it. But I also loved the different shaped stretchers, right? And for me, when I looked at your work, it always felt like there were these multiple images of like a silhouette of a stretched version of your canvases that had a solid color on it. And then they were kind of layered on top of each other, like being built out. And then there was always this nice like streak of light, whatever that light color was.
Like in that one over there.
Like in that one, it was like a bright white or green or yellow that felt like a lens flare. You understand what lens flare? So that's what I always saw. And I was like, I wonder if this is what she's trying to envision when she's making it. Is this a crack of light making its way through and all of these prisms that are created? And then I think obviously interpretation is for the individual who is putting all of their wants into the art.
Yeah, I love that interpretation.
Yeah, me too.
I love that you love it, but I know that is not what you're thinking about. But for me, that's like when I look and I pick out a piece, yes, it's based on the color for the space that I'm looking for, but it's also because of that interpretation for myself. The idea, I love a good lens flare. I love the idea that little line of color, that light, the brightest color always seems to me happens to be that streak that is in there. So I always lean towards that when I was looking at your work on things that I wanted to bring into my home. That leads me to the next question is when you're standing in front of a canvas. Now, abstract, I talked about John Baldessari with another artist that we interviewed, Faye Ray. She's a sculptor who actually worked for John Baldessari. And he has this piece of art out. And he talks about artists if they want to sell work. He talks about all the ways you can sell work. He talks about abstractions, right? When you're I'm sure abstractions are obviously easier to sell because people can make the decision of, I don't have to look at a figurative work and think about how that person is going to fit in my space. Right. But I can look at color and align that with my home, right?
Right. It's a little more approachable and digestible in ways.
For sure. Do you ever think about that going into a piece of work? Like, is this going to be easier for me to get out of my studio?
No.
Okay.
No. I do a lot of commission work where in that case, like, yes, I'm taking the room into account because I'm getting hired to create a piece of art for this
that space. Yeah.
And for me, that's just kind of a fun jumping off point into making a new piece. It's sort of like a prompt, you know, but I'm not ever making work to match something or to sort of meld seamlessly into a home. Right. Because I think that just sort of defeats the purpose.
For sure.
But I believe that like whatever work I want to make will find its right home.
For sure. So do you make work? Okay. So when you're considering the work, big scale, small scale, do you envision it first on a gallery wall or in someone's home?
I envision it in here first, honestly. That's an interesting question.
That makes sense.
I don't really envision
That's a great answer.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of envision what I want it to be first. And then it's kind of fun to daydream. Like, this would be so cool. Like, in a crazy hallway or something, you know, like that comes up later, but I'd never really envisioned the place that it's going to be while I'm making it, which is so interesting.
I think that's what makes it feel so versatile in any space is because you're not thinking of like a specific location in mind.
Like I'm just kind of making what I want to make.
And then just to jump back to like, you know, I feel like artists who create things in order to sell, I would like to say that like most artists don't feel that way, and art comes from unbridled passion and joy, and that's something you're choosing to do, and it's like your way of expressing who you are. But also like there are trendier pieces and like trendy colors to use for. This is a terrible example, but like Barbie pink. Like, are we?
I know what you mean.
Is that what's like in right now?
Or the whole Pantone thing. Like,
yeah, exactly. Color of the year.
Yeah,
like
totally.
Things that sort of set the mood. Although
do you ever lean towards that?
Yeah. I mean, even if you don't, I feel like it's something that's, even if it's not conscious thinking, like subconsciously.
Exactly. So like my camera roll is a crazy place, but it like I'm always taking pictures of things. Like if I see a color out in the wild that I like, or if I hear something, I like someone says something that I think is so interesting, I write it down, and it just becomes this big like melting like pot of just things that I find interesting, and then that's sort of where I draw
Inside
my
Emma's
inspiration
head.
from.
Inside Emma's head. That's another podcast.
But so back to what you were saying is like the color thing. It's all sort of psychological, and it's everywhere. And like I could lean towards I've leaned towards something before, and then it becomes like the color that, you know, and then I'm like, oh, that's why I wanted to work with that. I've been seeing it everywhere. So I would say, I think everyone's influenced by like what's trendy.
Definitely.
Whether you know it or not.
And sometimes trends are set, like, for example, like Pantone color of the year, since we were talking about it, they always give sort of like an explanation as to why it's the color of the year. And it has to do with like mood of that year, sentiment, big, you know, natural disasters, you know, the Olympics, whatever it might be. Like all of that contributes to color, which equals feeling, which equals art.
For sure. Some of their colors are shit, but it is what it is. I love that you utilize color in such a great way in your work. Did you study color theory? What were some things that you use today, like things that you learned? I remember the first time, like my freshman year, walking to color theory. Clifford Wan was my instructor. He's no longer at Micah, but I remember him showing color next to each other and how they affect each other. And I never studied that in high school. We talk about color, but it blew my mind.
Yeah, for us crazy. Non-art school people, can you tell us a little bit more about color theory class? What color theory is?
Yeah. So basically, color theory is the study of how color acts, right?
That's it.
So there's a bunch of different sort of experiments you can do when you're learning about it, and one of them is you have. It's going to be so hard to describe without a visual, but you have 4 colors, and the 2 on the far sides are the same color, but depending on what colors you put in the middle, your eye is going to trick you and make them look like 2 different colors.
Interesting.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's sort of a lot of color theories about how your eyes work.
Right.
When looking
Truly.
at color.
So it makes you understand when you're applying certain colors next to each other, how they will either push or pull against
interact with each other.
So you have to have that sense in that eye or that want to affect that, I guess, the viewer in that way with those colors. I'm staring over in the distance across Emma's studio at a piece that is blues. And I can't see from here, but it's 2 different blues. Maybe there's 3.
There's 2.
There's 2.
Oh no, there's 3. Sorry.
There's 3.
On the side, there's another
it's
one on
working.
the side.
Color theory in action.
You know, but there's a decision behind the application of one blue next to another blue, and how if one color next to another can change that color so much, like a pink next to a certain green, turns that green into something that is not next to I guess a blue.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So knowing these things. So when I see your work, I always go, it's interesting to me, the decisions behind a color going next to another color. Like I see it, and I always wonder for you, like you're talking about feeling, like evoking these feelings, these emotions. When you're starting, you're like, I have this emotion that I want to start with for this piece.
Yeah, or I want this painting to feel like this.
Yeah.
To feel whatever.
I love that. Do you gather those, is it almost like you can pull from your work, like this is a happier period of time. Like these are, you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That you feel like that's reflected in your work at that time?
To me, yeah.
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 So when you have these shows, are there shows that are based on those?
Like Emma's sad show, Emma's happy show.
I mean, I wish I could be that organized.
Here I got Plum. Like,
I'd have to get really sad to just make like one sad show.
Yeah, right.
So I would say it's always a mix going on. And I also like, I get sort of fixated on different methods. Like sometimes I get really into doing these like more material ish paintings, like where I'm letting it sort of be paint more and sort of
Emma's
carving out
pointing
compositions.
listeners to a piece where it's almost different than, and this is new to me, that it hasn't been a part of your work, where there's almost like it's more painterly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Apply
for sure.
the application of paint on the canvas is different than blocky forms of color.
Yeah, where you can't tell it's paint. Like it could be printed.
Because
like,
I
it's
love
so
controlling
smooth.
paint, but I also love
Letting
paint
it
be
be.
paint. And when it's
Yeah.
doing both of those things in one painting, I think that's interesting.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love
wanted
it so much.
to go back to
I
what
told you to write down questions, but not ask them. But no, go ahead.
Hilton, this actually wasn't what I wrote, but Hilton touched on it briefly that I thought was interesting. Is like, how do you start a new painting? Like how much planning goes into, I know you probably approach it with like a feeling you're trying to convey, but aside from that, like at what point does the shape of the canvas come in and like what colors you choose and how you decide to like have them all interact?
Okay. So unless it's like a commissioned piece where they need sketches and they need plans, like I don't sketch anything ever.
Wow. You just like hold the paintbrush in your hand and like go for it?
So first I build the canvases. So if we're
Right.
talking like a shaped canvas, I'm building the shape first and I'm making a shape that I like. That's like the whole thing is just I'm doing what I like.
Yeah, as you
But,
should.
But that shape is sketched out first.
onto the plywood that I'm making the shape
That's
out
what I'm
of.
saying, yes.
Yeah. So that's like planned in the moment.
Right.
That's cut. I make the stretchers, a bunch of shape stretchers, because I'm usually doing batches of paintings at a time. And so I'll have like 8 stretchers in here. They all need to get stretched and
Right.
primed. So then we come in on a day after I've stretched and primed everything and I can sort of start on things. And I just do one layer at a time, like one shape at a time. So I'm like reacting to the shape of the canvas and then I'm
Right.
reacting to the shape that I put within the shape of the canvas. Until
Interesting.
it
Are
sort of
you
makes
also
sense.
reacting to the music that you're listening to?
Possibly, yeah.
What are you listening to?
I'm listening to all kinds of stuff. Well, I'm listening to your podcast, but
Hey,
Look at you.
shout out.
Stop. But say more. No, but give me some things that I might not be hip to, because this next question I'm gonna ask has a little bit to do with what we're talking about now. You're young. I would say that because I'm old. You graduated. I shouldn't give your age. Maybe I shouldn't give your age.
I'm 28.
You're 20. Oh, you're 28, but you're much younger than me. What are you listening to right now that puts you in? Because I know for me, when I'm writing, I have to listen to things that have no lyrics.
Oh, really?
And a lot of it is soundtracks, like scores to films,
Oh, that's
I love
that's
that.
A good idea.
right?
I like that.
So I can't, because if I listen to things with lyrics, I'll just repeat those lyrics and not be able to write words.
That makes sense.
Right? For you, like what gets you in the mood, into the emotion that you're trying to convey on canvas?
I've been liking recently, it changes all the time,
Okay.
like daily probably. But recently, consistently, I've been listening to Billie Eilish's new album, like all the way through. Just to sort of like I like to listen to an album all the way through.
And when you say all the way through, you mean like on repeat too?
Oh, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
I haven't
all day
listened to it yet, but I'm going to listen to it. We're going to listen to it on the way out of
That's
here.
Good for
should.
my work. I like that for my work because it's like a lot of just sort of like not super lyrical stuff.
I was
Okay.
gonna say it, but it conveys. It's very moody.
Mood,
Yeah,
I
but
would
it's
say.
Whatever
moody.
mood it
Yeah.
is, it's moody.
And
It sounds
Yeah.
very moody.
And she's a brilliant artist too. So
yeah.
Okay. Well, now that we tapped into
That's
that,
my
my next question has to do with a lot of it, especially when it comes to business, marketing, branding. I wish as a 22-year-old coming out of Micah in 2002, there was social media.
I bet.
You grew up in a social media age. You graduated in 18. I was already building my brand at that time. While you were in Micah, you had the ability to build a brand on social.
Yeah, I kind of started posting my work during my thesis.
Can you tell us and the listeners, viewers, how social media has helped you and how it has also harmed you as a creative?
I'd say it's been more helpful than not. It's an amazing way to share your work. And like, I mean, I would say like 90% of my businesses come from someone finding me on Instagram or someone telling someone else about me that they found me on. I feel like I make all my connections on Instagram.
I met you through Instagram.
Yeah, that's true.
We met through Instagram. I mean, it's just such an easy way. Like, exactly. You find my cradle, you can look up my name, and then you see what I do, and it's like right there.
Yeah.
And it's just such an easy way to just share what I'm doing in here. Like, it's not so much of a mystery, or I try to not let it be. Like, I try to like share pretty consistently, at least like when I'm in here working, what I'm working on. So that's cool. I would say I wouldn't say it's harmed my career really at all. Well,
not career.
Yeah.
Because I guess I'm leaning towards
my creative process.
Yeah, because I feel like it can, like social can make you feel like you're not doing enough. I know a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah.
They experience burnout. They feel like they are seeing so much that they're just like, am I just, I guess, regurgitating someone else's artwork in this sort of sense? Have you felt any of that in the process of being a creative in a space that allows so many creatives or so many people to show their creative side?
Right. I think that in the, like maybe a couple years ago, I definitely was on it too much, and I was definitely looking at too much, and like also feeling pressure to sort of put out a lot of like content on it, you know, like just to like make myself relevant.
Yeah.
Because I was really trying to sort of establish myself a little bit more.
Yeah, of course.
And also like deciding what to share on there, because I don't have like a personal account. Like, and I also think that it's cool when I follow other artists, like I like to see like what they're up to when they're not working. Like I don't love just following an account that's just going to be the same.
Definitely.
Just like paintings, which
they're
are
a person,
easy to look at.
yeah.
But I think it's cooler when you know who the person is.
I agree.
So, I mean, I found a balance. I don't really look at a ton of art on social media. If it comes up and I think it's cool, then I save it. I have like a folder of like just cool things, like color, mostly just colors that I like.
That makes sense.
You know?
But you don't let that.
But I don't go on it when I'm in here or when I'm really working on something. Like it's just, I try to keep it very separate, and I also don't pressure myself to post all the time.
Right.
Like,
that's great.
That's super.
Yeah.
I think it's something that people need to learn, and I'm still working on myself, is how to have like a healthy relationship with social media. I'm not trying to like get rid of it altogether, because it is like, it is inspiring in so many ways to me. It like puts me on the right track in terms of how I want to live my life in many ways, but also the opposite, and trying to figure out like where that dynamic is in a healthy place for me.
For sure. Same. I'm in the same spot. Like I have a love-hate relationship with social.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
I've had it for a while.
Yes, you have.
And I think Jesus. I think it's sound like my wife.
Sorry, I got to hear
Sound
all
like
about
Fiona.
it. So.
She should ask Fiona. She does all the time. But I do believe there are so many great things about it. One that you mentioned is how you can create relationships.
Yeah.
Right?
Connections,
business-wise, those, like you said, connections. Business-wise, great too. It has helped me create a brand in a business.
Of course.
But I think the connections that I've made via social have been the things that I'm going to walk away with at a certain point and go,
definitely,
this made it all worthwhile. And I think it's a special thing to me.
I had another question.
Sure, go for it.
I wanted to ask, aside from like socials and posting on there, which I'm sure is like very important, I think there are so many sides to being an artist that people don't get to see. Like in my head, artist just like walks into the studio and like paints for hours and then like goes home, and there's all this administrative stuff that you mentioned, and having to like, you know, self-promote and delve in marketing. Like, what does that aspect of being an artist look like?
I would say
also, do you hate that part or like, how does that? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't love it. It depends on what I need to do. Like some weeks are just heavier administratively than others, like tax season. Like,
Right.
You know, I'm like not like in here like painting every day. Sometimes I'm just like doing Home Depot runs or like getting supplies or like that, like doing deliveries, like taking our work to different places, you know? So it just always, it depends. And some of it I mind more than others, but like it's all good. But I mean, sometimes I like to sort of wait till I have maybe like a stack of things I need to do. Like I need to sit at my laptop and do, and then that's when I do it all.
I see.
Because then I just make that my whole work day.
She made procrastination sound very organized.
It's organized procrastination.
I wait for
it's organized procrastination.
Yeah, that's that's literally it.
Working with deadlines.
Exactly. I hate it.
Yeah.
So I had to hire a team. Do you have a team yet? Yeah, you do.
She's right there.
You forgot. Oh,
Shout out Plum.
Plum, your mom, your dad. Very supportive folks.
Yes, they're very helpful.
I have like one big question to ask here before we take off. And I want to understand from you, someone who I respect as an artist, as an individual. I know you're probably not going to answer this because it's so vague. But maybe you do have a vision, a 10-year vision, 20-year vision. The idea of, for me, and you kind of leaned in here a little bit, when I dreamt younger, I guess, the idea of being an artist, painting, what that looked like for me as success. I've made it. What does that look like for you? Making it. I saw myself like, I'm in galleries and I'm drinking champagne. I'm in New York. You know what I mean? Like, you've hit New York. You've been in galleries, you said, in London, DC, all these different places.
You were at the Umbrella Art Fair.
Yes.
Look at you. You tapped. You hit it.
Shout out Peter Chang.
I love him.
Shout out Peter Chang.
He loves Plum too. Plum was at the Umbrella Art Fair.
Oh,
who if anyone didn't
Plum's
like
been everywhere. Plum's a true socialite.
She is.
Basically, she's
been
on
in New
socials.
York.
She's also a terrible coworker. Look at her.
She's very
She needs a
lazy.
performance improvement plan.
What is your making it look like for you?
I think, I mean, I've had that feeling before where I'm like, okay, this is a form of making it. I think just being able to sort of provide what I want and need for myself by doing all this feels like making it. And that sort of changes with like, as I get older, what I want and what I need.
Yeah, it'll keep changing.
Yeah,
too.
and it'll keep changing. So I sort of see it as like a yearly make, like this, I made it this year.
Yeah,
You know,
did.
like doing like, I don't know, new studio. I got this studio last fall and that was sort of a goal last year. And every year I look back and I'm like, I couldn't have even planned that. So I don't like to really plan exact goals as much as like just sort of work really hard and see what happens.
Yeah.
This is sort of my approach to that.
For sure. I love that. Young artists in general, trying to create a life for themselves. We had Derek Adams on the podcast. The one thing he said that resonated to me, which you've already done for yourself, is create a space for yourself. And you have that. And so many of us need that.
Yeah.
Because you can't do anything until you have that space for yourself.
Right.
And I love being in here and seeing your space. It's
Thanks.
bright. It's literally everything a artist, like a young artist, like mind envisions as their art studio.
It's awesome.
For sure.
I'm so happy
you
about this
found
space.
it.
Yeah.
You
I
found
love
it. I love that for you. I love that I'm here and able to get to see it in person. What are some things that if you were, it's so funny to say because you're so young, but going back to when you first entered into MICA, right? 18, 17, however old you were. If you could tell yourself what's one thing that you know now, right? That could help you, that could help your 45-year-old self, right? Like, oh shit, if I could have done this then, I would have already been where this thing is. What would you tell yourself?
Just go to MICA freshman year, probably.
Just go to MICA freshman year,
Just
really?
like go. And also like just start working hard. It's not hard. It's fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine.
Has any of this felt like work to you yet?
Yeah, but in a good way. Like in a good way.
In a good way.
Yeah.
I love that the train is here.
Yeah, I know.
Choo-choo.
Jack.
It's the perfect sign. It's the perfect sign off. It's going to give a few more horns, but Emma, thank you.
Thank
you guys so much for coming.
Also, for people who want to know where to find you, where to see your art.
Yes. My website is emmachildsart.com and my Instagram is emmachilds.
When you can't tell us when we're going to see you in the next show?
Not yet, but I post everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Follow
and I have a
on
couple
there.
exciting projects that I'm excited to share the process of. So it'll be
Yeah.
be good.
And if you're
Super
looking at
neat.
the podcast, watching it, by the time you see this, maybe some of the things will still be for sale that's behind us. The piece over there, I'm pointing at this wonderful piece that is mine. That
Now
none of you
is
can-
sold.
is sold.
In the little break we had.
Yeah, we
this
took a
has been
break.
sold.
And yeah, you support artists across the board, but
Yes.
you definitely support artists who support you. And Emma purchased something from me before I ever purchased anything from her. But I feel like there was nothing that could have stopped me from purchasing something today, especially when my wife sent me here on a mission.
Oh, I love that.
She was like, "You have
Fiona
to
was
buy
like, "Go
something
get
from
something."
her."
I love
Yeah, because she
that.
really wanted that piece that we had in
The
our
big
home,
one?
the big
Yeah.
one. And she was like, "Did you buy it yet?" And I was like, "I didn't know you wanted it."
Aw.
And I was like, "I should have," but I think you'd already said that was going somewhere else, and we could just
It
hold
ended up
it.
in Connecticut, I think.
It ended up in
Ooh.
Connecticut,
that's
which
where that
is
lives.
which is a great place
Craig
for
took
it. Craig Melvin.
Shout out to that.
Shout out to
painting in
Connecticut.
Whoa, we got a Connecticut shout out. We're just shouting out whatever we
whoever,
wanted.
yeah. Shout out a few states, you know what I mean? Overlooked states,
Interesting.
Delaware. Shout out to
Montana,
Delaware.
what's up?
Montana, what's happening? Emma, such a pleasure of ours to have you on the podcast. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. And guys, check Emma out wherever you can. Soon she'll have so many places that you can find her. Probably a book is going to be happening for her at some point down the road. She probably can't
That's
talk
one of my
about
goals.
it. That's one of your goals, to have a book.
I forgot it was my goal.
What's another goal that you want or dream thing for yourself?
I'd love to have a studio where I live at some point. That's
Oh,
like a
brilliant.
big goal.
I know that's going to happen for you.
Yeah.
That's a great goal to have for yourself in a few years or next year.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to be in the Baltimore Museum of Art.
Boom.
That's a good one.
That's all of these are super attainable. I can see all of that happening.
BMA. Come on now.
Yeah.
I love that for you. That's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's all going to happen for you. I love that you put that out there on this podcast so we can go,
Yes.
remember she said it
Yeah.
on the podcast.
We're
Just
manifesting
it out
right
now.
now.
Yeah. Typically, Emma, I want you to know something that I typically do. I typically say, like, on things like this, like interviews, they're like, "Hey, what do you want for yourself?" I'm like, "Well, I hope I get a new book," and I'm already working on it.
Yeah.
Like, I would love
That's
a collection.
genius.
I would love a collection at Target.
People.
I would love a collection at Target.
And you're like,
I'm
"Guess what? It
Guess what? I
happened."
have a collection at Target. By the time
This
this
is manifesting.
podcast
Yeah,
comes
exactly.
out, I'm gonna say, "Oh, I wish I ever had a show, a TV show that had like
yeah,
a pilot."
that's what's next.
But yeah, by the time this comes out, you would have already known that I have a TV pilot that's already out in there. But I want all those things for you.
Yeah.
But I don't need to want them.
It's gonna
You
happen.
want them. And the fact that you want them, and I know how hard you work, it's going to happen.
Thank you.
So congratulations on getting all those things.
Thank you.
So
I'll get you a copy.
Yes.
please, guys, thank you for tuning in. You just heard from the wonderful artist Emma Childs. Do the thing. What is it?
Press the button, do the thing.
Do the thing. Press the button.
Like,
do the thing.
subscribe. I don't even know anymore.
There it is.
All those things.
All those things. You'll be hearing from us soon.
Balancing work and life can be really stressful, and finding ways to work through the stress is always a goal of mine. Of course, the process of nurturing plants helps me to slow down, take a breath, and bring in joy. But unfortunately, my plants aren't licensed therapists with expert advice. Regardless if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or you're just a human who lives in this world who is going through a hard time, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a very different way. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. And this is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to the options in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. There's a link in my description. It's betterhelp.com/Hilton. Clicking this link helps to support this channel, but it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp so you can connect with a therapist and see if it helps you. And because finding a therapist is a little like dating, if you don't really fit with that therapist, which is a common thing with therapy, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. Starting this podcast was supposed to be a little extra therapy for me, getting the ideas in my head out. Good to know I can always use BetterHelp just in case Molly can't help me. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/Hilton. Thank you again, BetterHelp, for supporting this channel.